Hi guys, and welcome to my review of Ant-Man, Marvel's latest and arguably greatest achievement considering the source material. Let's see, for those of you who don't know, Ant-Man is the newest Avengers film, and his particular power is shrinking, which sounds like it's a terrible superpower at first, until you consider that when he gets shrunk down, because he's so compact, he gets like super strength and can jump like really high, like as the height of a normal person in one leap. So he's basically Superman, except for really small, which is good because his enemies can't see him. They make the premise work, even though it sounds very silly, which is, to be honest, the movie's strong suit is this crazy premise and how well they execute it. So, the film is centered around Scott Lang, who is an ex-convict who's just trying to get by. He really wants to be there for his daughter, but he just can't seem to make it until he gets recruited by Hank Pym, a retired scientist who used to be the Ant-Man. During the Cold War, he developed what's called the Pym particle, named after himself, which allows a person to shrink down, but also survive it and be able to grow back to normal size with no consequences, or so little consequences it doesn't matter until you've done it 10,000 times. So Hank Pym realizes that someone has stolen or replicated his shrinking technology, and is going to try to use it to take over the world, or at least sell it to people who are going to take over the world, something very bad. So Hank Pym, along with his daughter, who is very capable and knows about the shrinking stuff, they recruit Scott Lang, the ex-con, to become the new Ant-Man. Now, the guy who plays Scott Lang is really funny and a good hero. He's a very everyman sort of guy, more personable than any other of the Avengers so far. He's a guy that most everyone can sort of see at least a little bit of themselves in, which really works for this movie. And let's get to talking about the premise. This power sounds ridiculous, and I always hated it in the comics and in the TV shows because it was never very fun to watch. Like, it's fun to see Thor shoot lightning and Iron Man fly and the Hulk smash things, but Ant-Man, it's like, whatever. It's never something I was excited to see. But that's because I never saw it on the big screen. I never saw the world at a gigantic scale with him shrunk down with the budget of a big blockbuster Marvel movie. It looks amazing. It makes for amazing set pieces. He can have fights with guys, like where he runs at them, shrinks down, runs along their gun, punches in the face, then shoots back up to normal size and keeps going down the hallway. Or can have fights like inside of walls or inside of like a purse or whatever. And it makes for some pretty spectacular looking fights that are just so creative. They rival the epic scale of anything else, even though it's such a tiny scale. And it works so amazingly well, which is kind of awesome because Ant-Man seemed to be just, the premise is the weakest of any Avengers film so far, even weaker than Guardians, because it didn't have a tried and true setting like a space opera, because Star Wars and Star Trek had proven that it could be awesome before. Nobody's ever done a really amazing shrinking sort of film before. It's more of a gimmick than anything else, usually done in TV shows. But they don't play it off as a big epic fight like Thor and Iron Man and Captain America have been. It's more of a heist film where they're trying to steal the technology back using the shrinking technology, and also his ability to like sort of telepathically control ants, with hence Ant-Man as opposed to Tiny Man or whatever. And they explain the science pretty darn well. The different kinds of ants, what they're special at, how he can get around really well, why he doesn't get crushed, and can take, like a bullet almost when he's tiny. It it's all explained very well, and it really gets you into it. Like during his like training montage when he's figuring out the powers, you're kind of into it. You're thinking it's cool, and you just want to learn more before we get on to the next actual action scene. It's been compared a lot to Mission Impossible, but with shrinking and ants, which it is. It's kind of like this big heist film, and that make it a lot of fun since this is a unique premise in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a premise we haven't seen before, and it proves that Marvel, even though they're all superhero movies, can offer something new and fresh, even when we're I don't know how many years in. It can offer a movie that's got a different flavor than we've ever seen before. The science isn't all there. Like, if you try to sit down and really think about how every little shrinking and growing sequence works, you're going to pick it apart. It will eventually come apart. But you just sort of forgive it because they do such an excellent job. It's like you know a magic trick isn't real when you see it, but it just looks so good, it's executed so well that you just suspend your disbelief a little bit and accept the rules as they're given to you. Because they never stretch it very far, and when they do, it's just like a little bit, and this is like weeks later. I'm sitting here like, oh, no, that wouldn't really make sense, but for definitely while you're in the theater, it makes plenty of sense. They did a really good job of this being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a very tight, self-contained story. You only need basically just the three characters and a few other side characters. Ant-Man and his mentor Hank Pym and his daughter. But they do set up a little bit of like you can see Civil War or Ant-Man 2 coming down the pipe. So, and they reference the Avengers a little bit. Unlike any Marvel movie before, they give a nice little, like, quick, this is why the Avengers are not involved moment. And that's all you need. And for the rest of the movie, you're not wondering, oh, well, why doesn't Thor come help Ant-Man out? Or why doesn't Iron Man show up? Because anytime your brain might be like, I wonder why. Oh, yeah, they talked about it. And you don't think about it for the rest of the movie. Which is great. It's something that's not been done before. The problems with the movie. It doesn't have many, but there are a few, and one is really the villain. He's acted very well. The guy who plays the villain, he's giving it his all. But it's not that, like, he's got poor dialogue, is not what I'm trying to say, but to say he's poorly written is that there's not a whole lot for him to do. There's not character moments for him to have. He's just bad. He wants power. And that's about it. He's fun to watch in that, but he's bad, wants power just like everybody else we've seen before, except for like Loki and Ultron. So the guy's doing his best, the actor is doing his best, but he's not given enough to work with to really make him a memorable villain. His suit's pretty cool though, and his fight scenes are cool, just like Ant-Man's. But that's not enough to build a whole character on. The side characters. Scott Lang's character has some buddies who've helped him out with heists, and they sort of get brought in, and you get to like see how they work with him, like especially during the early parts of the movie. And at first I was like, man, these guys are gonna be terrible. They're all comic relief. They all have really quirky personalities, and at first you're like, oh, okay, they're laughing, and they're still hanging around. You're like, oh man, this is gonna get old. Like, and you're still laughing, but you're worried for that moment when they turn into Jar Jar Binks or whatever. You're like, okay, why are they still here? I want to see more Ant-Man. But they never do. They stick around for a lot of the movie, and you like them. It doesn't get old, and I think mostly because they really cleverly made them more than comic relief. Every one of these side characters gets to do something besides just be funny. They get to do at least one or two things that are helping progress the story, that are helping Ant-Man out on his mission. So they're not useless, and you never think they're useless. You just get to enjoy the comedy they bring. But anytime your brain's like, why are they here? Oh yeah, that's why he's here, because he's got to like tap the phones or something, which is really refreshing in side characters. The character arcs, as far as the lessons learned. it's really about Hank Pym and his daughter, about what it means to be the Ant-Man, why he didn't ask her to be the new like Ant Girl or whatever, like some possible tragedy that's happened in the past, which is why Hank Pym took off the Ant-Man suit in the first place. Which I'm not going to spoil anything, but it gets deep, it gets emotional, and they're really like the heart of the film is their story and their struggle. Scott Lang he has a bit of a struggle, definitely enough struggle to relate to and enough struggle to make a story, but his struggle internally sort of ends first third. Like after the first third, he's like, okay, now I'm going to do this. And then the rest of the film is just him figuring out how to do it and figuring out how to become good enough to achieve his goal. It's very much him versus his enemy, not like, say, in Iron Man 3, where he had all this emotional trouble he had to work out in order to beat his enemy. Scott Lang figures out his emotional trouble pretty quick, and then you just get to see him take on the obstacles. But Hank Pym and his daughter provide that sort of emotional drama you just sort of want to see to give the film a little bit of different flavor. And with all of these amazing elements, with a couple of things that go just a hair wonky, I'm very happy to say that Ant-Man is my new favorite Avenger. This is probably not my favorite film, but just a huge surprise at how amazing it was for such a stupid concept, such a silly name. Ant-Man is a really awesome film, a really good time. My favorite Avenger, well, not Avenger yet, but my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe character. And I cannot wait to see the next one. So my final rating for this movie is that it's worth owning. It's not the best movie in the world. I know I'm praising it a lot just because I was so surprised. It's a little bit of a smaller scale, a couple of problems, so without my excitement for the film, this is a really good movie. Not the most amazing thing in the world by any means, but it's absolutely worth checking out, and a lot of people are going to love it. So if you haven't already, go find it. See if you can see it still, maybe in some theaters, or get it on DVD or Blu-ray. It is going to be worth it. Now, I'm looking forward to the next movie, Captain America Civil War, which, yeah, well, it's officially been cast. Ant-Man is going to be in Civil War, and Ant-Man 2 is on the way, so I'm excited for those two films. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Click here if you want to see some more of my movie reviews from 2015, and I will see you next time. Bye.